From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay.
You like vintage pickups, folks? Hey, then stay tuned. I've got some real eye candy for you.
A big export of soybeans suddenly canceled. And could China finally be coming to the bargaining table?
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. A big story we're following. We might finally be seeing some movement to end the trade war with China. South China Morning Post reporting President Trump and China's president have tentatively agreed to meet on the sidelines of the G20 Leader Summit. It's scheduled for Buenos Aires next month. The initial date set November 29th. That's the day before the summit formally gets underway. The vice premier, who is one of the Chinese president's top economic aides, told state media Beijing and Washington, quote, are contacting each other at present. Now, neither the White House nor China's foreign ministry have released details about their leaders' schedules for that summit. Meanwhile, the trade war continues. USDA announcing 180,000 metric tons of soybeans scheduled for delivery to China were canceled. Another 120,000 tons of optional origin beans to an unknown destination also canceled. Analysts say Brazil's soybeans are now more expensive than buying from the United States, yet China keeps purchasing from the country.
If you just look at economics at this point, it would be more economical for them to purchase from the U.S. as opposed to Brazil. But can they get by, for lack of a better phrase, with some of these other factors coming into play, i.e. changing the rations, substitutes, are their stocks larger than what we thought?
Basting says it's going to be a test to see if the Chinese come back to the U.S. market while soybean prices have a premium to Brazil and when the country's new crop soybeans become available months from now. The U.S. has stopped imports of pork from Poland for now. It follows an outbreak of African swine fever in that country. Reuters reporting USDA is reviewing Poland's export protocols. USDA also working with Customs and Border Protection to increase screenings of passenger bags coming from Poland. This all designed to ensure that restricted products are not being brought into the country, and the problems continue in China. That country announcing it has had to kill 200,000 pigs due to African swine fever. It has seen 41 outbreaks of the disease so far. No sign of African swine fever here in the U.S., but American hog farmers are getting hit by the ongoing trade war with China. Tariffs on U.S. pork have climbed as high as 70%. A Wall Street Journal article reports meat processors in China are widening their supplier base. It's to guard against shortages as U.S. prices soar and the country deals with its own outbreak of African swine fever. USDA releasing its latest cattle on feed report. It shows cattle and calves on feed are the highest October inventory since they started keeping records in 1996. That number is 11.4 million head. Placements totaling 2.5 million head, 5% below 2017. Marketings of fed cattle totaled 1.72 million head, 4% below 2017. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue looking for an aid package for farmers hit hard in the southeast by recent hurricanes. Perdue saying, quote, current safety net programs we have for farms in the Farm Bill are not going to be adequate for this kind of devastation, end quote. Georgia's Agriculture Commissioner estimates the state suffered up to $3 billion in agricultural losses from the storm. Florida's Ag Commissioner says at least 3 million acres of timber were affected and other commodities suffered severe damage. Blue Jackets will swarm Indianapolis this week as FFA students from around the country gather for its annual convention. The 91st National FFA Convention and Expo will run through Saturday. It's a time for business, awards, keynote speakers, and everything that showcases a passion for ag. I caught up with some national officers who are excited to run this week's convention.
I'm excited to celebrate with everyone, knowing that many FFA members are going to be there, sponsors, ag teachers, and families. It's going to be really cool for all of us to come together to celebrate.
We're then going to blow up Indianapolis with a whole bunch of blue jackets as well as a whole bunch of crazy passion for FFA, and it's going to be wild.
Keep watching, because later this week I will have an exclusive interview with the outgoing National FFA President, Brianna Holbert. She is breaking barriers not just in FFA, but the ag world. More farmers in Iowa starting to get back into their fields. Meteorologist David Harker has more in today's crop comments. Good morning, David.
A welcome sight in Iowa. Take a look at the video sent in to us by Dave Newby in Bondurant, Iowa. Now it's finally harvest time. David says he's been lucky to miss most of the rain north of Des Moines. He's been harvesting corn for a few days and was planning to start work on beans. Now he estimates his harvest loss at 3 to 4 bushels an acre and yields down about 10 bushels from last year. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got with the drought monitor. My goodness, we're looking at even more dry weather out west, but the majority of the United States seems to be okay, and with more rain showers in the forecast for the next 10 days as well as the next 30, it might be a welcome sight, hopefully, to areas in the Four Corners region of the United States. We'll have a look at the national forecast coming up in just a few minutes, but for now, here's a look at some hometown temps.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
While some farmers are able to work in their fields in Iowa, not everyone has been as lucky. Sonia Begeman reports from Crescent, Iowa, where too much water continues to be a problem.
Despite a promising start to the season, farmers along the Missouri River are battling more than just Mother Nature this year. Flooding from the Missouri River is keeping many farmers out of their fields.
We got fence row to fence row planted. By the end of June, we had probably the best looking crop that I'd had in a long time. Then it started raining, mainly up north, and the snow melt coming in.
At the beginning of July, the Missouri River crested at about 20 feet in Omaha. It did go down, but shortly thereafter, 9 inches of rain hit these farms on August 20th. Farmers say that there's not much hope to get all of their crop out of the ground.
It's been kind of a disaster. The water table's high, the river's real high, and so we've got a lot of crop yet, but we can't get at it.
The Macklins say it's unlikely they'll be able to get back into fields until after December, especially if releases on the Missouri River stay open. Even if they can get back into fields, they fear quality in corn and soybeans will be destroyed.
Well, out of about 2,000 acres, I think we might be able to harvest 500. That sound about right, TJ? Maybe a quarter of it, and the rest of it we're just going to have to sit and wait unless we plan on getting stuck a lot. So it's going to be a long wait. We don't know what it's going to do for next 2019.
The Macklins said they're grateful they were able to get into fields early this season so they can qualify for crop insurance. Unfortunately, they're only going to be able to harvest about 25% of their acres, making their promising start an unfortunate finish. In Crescent, Iowa, I'm Sonia Begeman.
Nebraska taking a new approach to tourism with a new slogan. The new slogan is Nebraska. Honestly, it's not for everyone. Officials said in a release that while the state may not be on everyone's bucket list, if you like experiences that are unpretentious and uncomplicated, you'll like Nebraska. Tourism officials say Nebraska consistently ranks as the least likely place tourists plan to visit. Some of you sent in your opinions on the new slogan to us on Twitter. Feel free to head over to our AgDay Facebook page to discuss. We'd love to hear from you. What's driving the markets right now? And how concerned should we really be about China? Some analysis coming up. And it's a staple at Thanksgiving. We're talking about sweet potatoes. We check out the harvest so far in the country.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Let's see what impact the new information about soybean exports had on the market. Here's more from the CME.
Today in the soybeans, they slipped a little bit. The Monday's gains were erased completely. So after all this week, the momentum really turned to the bear side. Perhaps the top of the market is in. With exports low and supplies high, the market has nowhere else to go but down. Corn was also easier today. That slower export sales started to weigh on the market somewhat. The steadily grinding lower all week with no fundamental news. Technicals numbers are starting to take over, and as we slip below some of those support levels, the market is starting to decline. The trend is really bearish again as we head into more of the harvest. We expect that there's going to be more field work coming in, and with those numbers coming out, it's not looking good at this point right now, and we're sinking. It's not really falling off the cliff here, but the market is moving lower. Wheat was firmed up somewhat. There's an uptick in the export sales, and so that hit a forecast by the USDA for the first time in maybe like 3 weeks. I'm Virginia McGathy.
More now on the China trade war and what that means for the markets. Tyne Morgan has more with Todd Horwitz on why he's not too concerned about China.
Here now with Bubba Horwitz. Bubba, looking at last week, kind of a crazy market action, stronger in the week, lower later in the week. Right now, really, what is hanging over the markets? What's pressuring markets today?
I think what's pressuring markets is just overall price action, waiting for the equities to break down, watching interest rates. We're kind of seeing some commercials try to sell into it, but I think the markets are setting up, for a much bigger up move. I think we saw just a sample of that just last Monday. We saw the kind of action that I think we're looking for. I think pretty much across the board. My thesis here is that the equity markets sell off and that money flows into the grain space. Plus the fact that if you think that there's going to be a deal with China, which I do believe, again, I've said from the very day one that there is no issue with these trade wars. So I think that it will settle. I think we'll get this movement, and I think that money is going to flow into the alternatives.
But we've been talking about that for a while, and as we do see some of this money exit the equity markets, what is it going to take for those to jump in, that money to really jump into agriculture?
Well, I think they're at really good levels right now, and I think that, again, money searches for a spot to go to, okay? And it's going to find, again, I believe the commodities, the equities, and everything else, and that's really what you look for, is where is it going to flow to? And we're already starting to see some of the other softs go higher.
What do you think, though? Which ag commodity is the most attractive? Which one's the cheapest that maybe we would see the equity, that money jump into first?
Well, I think wheat is really cheap right here. I think wheat's in a great pattern for a great explosion to the upside. Corn's right on support, looks really good, and soybeans look really good as well. But I think wheat would be my first choice if I were looking for one.
So from a farmer's perspective, what's your advice right now?
From a farmer's perspective, you want to sit back. You don't want to panic. You don't want to get concerned about price. Price will come back. Price will hold. And one thing farmers should always think about is make sure that you're hedged with the upside open, and you don't have to worry about anything.
All right, Bubba, good point. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Stay with us. We need to take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather right here on Ag Day.
Ag Day, brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist David Harker. David, when we look at this map right here of temperatures this week above normal for some of the western corn belt, that's going to be good, dry down some of the fields. What about precipitation?
Well, it looks like still seeing rain showers, but at least it'll be minimal. We're going to talk more about that in just a moment, but you notice most of the country below normal temperatures may not be the best for everyone. It's the Great Lakes and the northeastern portion of the United States that's tending to see the below normal temperatures, something that's been more common in weeks past. We do have the above normal temperatures mainly off along the western coastline, as you see there on the screen. And as we talk precipitation, we mentioned just a moment ago, we do just that. The above normal precipitation, or at least the higher percentages, will be in the northwestern portion of the United States, down in South Texas, as well as the Atlantic coastal region. And as just mentioned, the Dakotas and Nebraska. We talk about the chances of rain, but because it'll be minimal, it still may allow the farmers to get out and do some more harvesting. As we transition and take a look at the jet stream forecast, notice on the screen, big ridge of high pressure, which means the dry conditions and lack of rain showers, at least for the start of the work week. But that's going to change as we more or less see the zonal flow commence across the United States. We'll see system after system allowing some cooler air, whether it be in the Great Lakes region as well as the Northeast, and stretching down maybe as far south as as West Virginia, Virginia, Kentucky, and even into Tennessee. When we transition for the second half of the weekend into the upcoming weekend, another large system cutoff low continues to dig deep further south, and that's why the below normal temperatures will even be as far south as Alabama, as well as Mississippi, and even portions of Louisiana dealing with a bit of a cold spell. I still do expect to see above normal temperatures even 30 days out, and you're probably looking at this map and thinking, well, there's not going to be a cool spot at all. Here's what I can tell you: the higher temperatures, or at least more above normal temperatures, that is, sitting across the portions of the Northeast as well as down into Southern California, Arizona, as well as Nevada and Utah. Generally everywhere else, we're talking only a few degrees above normal, and this is again over the next month or so. When we start talking precipitation, it's limited to, we'll say, the southern half of the states as well as areas along the eastern coastline. You make your way out precipitation-wise in the plain states, this is going to make it ideal for the farmers to get out in the fields and get the harvesting done, as well as out in the northwest. Below normal precipitation, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be completely dry and see a lot of the problems with regards to drought up that way. We will eventually see more precipitation in those locations as we look to the winter months. Now let's go ahead and take a look at conditions close to home. Here's a look at our forecast for Hurricane Utah. Morning rain showers, clouds around with a high of 68 degrees. Moving into Mankato, Minnesota, 58 with sunshine and a mild afternoon. Down in Douglas, Georgia, we're staying dry and comfortable with a high of 75.
Coming up, we throw it back old school. Machinery Pete talks vintage trucks and where to find the deals next. Love vintage farm equipment? You gotta complete the look with a vintage truck. And Machinery Pete tells us there are some pretty good deals out there.
Okay folks, today we're going to talk vintage pickups. Now back on September 18th, my friends at Sullivan Auctioneers had an amazing estate auction out in Garden City, Kansas, where this 1959 Chevy Apache 3100 pickup sold. 30,000 original miles on it, and it went for $27,000. Now, I posted a YouTube video of this thing selling on our machinerypete.com website, and you should check it out. It was amazing. The bidding was going along at $250 increments, up around $15,000, $16,000, and then it just took off. Again, wound up going for $27K. Now, what I find interesting on these vintage pickups, just like vintage tractors, is the original factor versus restored. Now, here's a picture of a fully restored Chevy 3100 Apache. And this thing was a 46 model, sold for $45,000 last November on a collector auction out in Greensboro, North Carolina. Beautiful inside and out. But if we go back to the original factor, you will never find a more amazing auction than back on September 28th, 2013 in Little Pierce, Nebraska. This was the famous Lambrecht Chevrolet dealer auction. Now this was a dealer that kind of for whatever reason over the years, just a lot of times kept new product, didn't sell it. And he had two 3100 Apaches that were amazing. Here's a picture of the 60 model with 2 miles on it, brought $46,000, but the king of the hill was this 1958 model, 5 miles on it, brought $80,000.
Who doesn't love sweet potato pie? We head into the fields for a look at the sweet potato crop in Louisiana next in the country.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota's full line of field-proven hay tools. Explore the full lineup at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
In the country, Louisiana sweet potato farmers are approaching the midpoint of their harvest. As LSU Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux reports, yields are good, but acreage is down.
Sweet potato farmers were finally able to get in their fields and harvest what is shaping up to be a very good crop for most growers. Rain and a shortage of harvest crews delayed producers, but they are now full into their harvest, and many are encouraged by first-rate yields.
Yields, we're hearing some extra good yields, and then some others saying they're off slightly from where they were last year, but it's still decent yields.
In Louisiana, sweet potato growers have 2 choices for their product: the fresh market or a sweet potato processing plant.
A lot of growers have left the fresh market entirely and went to processing, and they are comfortable with the economic picture that it paints for them.
Vinoy Kennard grows strictly for the processing market. He says the fresh market is not as consistent as the processing side, and it is more costly to produce a fresh market potato.
It makes it so much easier on us. We know what we're going to get for the potatoes, And I really wouldn't be farming them right now if it wasn't for that, because it's so much harder to fresh market them.
One area of concern regarding sweet potatoes in Louisiana is the decrease in acreage. The 2018 crop has seen nearly a 20% reduction.
Last year we had about 9,200 acres. This year, according to reports, we got about 7,700 acres. And that's attributed some to some growers cutting some acreage back and some retirements.
With the yield of this year's crop in Louisiana, consumers should have no problem finding fresh sweet potatoes. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.